Okay, I think I have green light from Tatiana, so we can kick start with our second panel for today. Title: Shaping Tomorrow's Workspaces, Gen Z's Vision for Flexibility, Wellness, and Tech. So let me just give you a bit of an overview of today's topic. So a global survey by McKinsey found that 70% of Gen Z's respondents prefer hybrid or remote work arrangements, and 80% believe technology and automation will create a more equitable work environment. Additionally, 92% of Gen Z's value employers who prioritize mental health and wellness, and this is becoming a very important topic when we talk about Gen Z's in workspaces. So obviously in this session, we'll focus on understanding and catering to the unique needs and preferences of this, what we call digital generation, particularly those under 40 who comprise a significant portion as well of Saudi Arabia's population. With our panelists, we will discuss innovative design strategies that cater to Gen Z's unique demands, ensuring that workspaces are conducive to their well-being, productivity, and technological proficiency. So, without further ado, I would like to start inviting our panelists. One of our panelists, okay, we removed it. Okay, that's fine. So Hassan Yusuf, if you can come and join us on the stage. He's a project manager of the Real Madrid Foundation football program in Riyadh, combining his passion for sports with a deep commitment to humanitarian work. With a degree in international studies, he's traveled to 30 countries, and his work is driven by creativity, collaboration, and a heart for making a global impact. Thank you so much for joining us today. Our next panelist is Lynn Nasser. Lynn, can you join us on the stage? She's Director of Development at International Design Associates, IDA, where she has played a key role of transforming the company into a global multidisciplinary leader. And what's also interesting about you, Lee, that you are IDA's first Gen Z director. So for sure, she brings a fresh perspective on business development, marketing, as well as design. Today with us, we also have Manuja Sharma. She's founder and creative director of New Giant C. It's a boutique creative branding studio, proudly impatient for growth. She brings over 12 years of corporate marketing experience to her work. And with a lot of Gen Zs on your team, I'm sure you have a lot of input to share with us today as well. And last but certainly not least, we have with us Dr. Engineer Architect Maria Sipinska-Malashinska. She's CEO of MSM Design Partner Ergo Home Group. Thank you so much for joining us today, and I will join you now with the discussion. Who would have thought that today we're going to talk about Gen Zs, right? So a few years ago, the focus was on millennials, what millennials want, how are millennials shaping workspace design, how are millennials shaping hospitality design, and the influence of that. And we know that millennials are today taking the larger portion of the workforce. But today we're talking about Gen Zs, because obviously Gen Zs, as such a micro generation entering the workforce, they have a lot to say, and they do come with different demands of workspaces as well. So before we start about the topic, I just want to kind of test the temperature of your own offices. How many Gen Zs you have in your office, and how do you find it challenging, difficult, inspiring to work with Gen Zs as well? So maybe we can start with you, Hassan.
Sure. In my office, 99% are Gen Z. I'm the 1%. Millennial. It is challenging, inspiring, motivating. I love working with them. I learn a lot from them. It's important to, foster unity, collaboration, have an open mind, and this is what I love about working with millennials, Gen Zs, Gen X, baby boomers, ALF, whatever. Yeah. Thank you.
For us, it's still a majority of millennials, but every year our numbers of Gen Z are growing. And what's really nice is they bring a new, fresh perspective to the team. So that's something nice and interesting to see.
Okay. Manuja, from your side, what's the ratio?
We're actually evenly split. So there's 50% of my team by accident, which are Gen Z, which is very different. So I'm a millennial. So especially as a business owner, it's very different. Like you mentioned, I think the expectations, but also the opinions and the demands are different from how I started my career. But I think it's also the perspective, the confidence that they bring in, which is very vital to us as a studio.
Perfect. Maria, from your side.
Well, in our company, I think around 20% is above 40 because this defines the Generation Z. But I think what is most important in team building is the language that we use. Our pre-speaker was talking about the language as a home for all of us, and we're talking about creating. So I think the language we have in common between the generations is the most important. But yeah, majority is Gen Z as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And obviously, you all bring in different expertise. So I don't want to keep the discussion only workplace design focused, because obviously we can get input on Gen Zs and their behavior in workspaces from a different angle as well. And I'm sure, Hassan, you're going to bring a different input as well as you, Manuja, as well. But now talking about your role design, because obviously I have Maria and Lean here who are coming with a design background. Obviously, do you feel that there are different workplace strategies that have to be put in place to answer those demands of this particular generations when it comes to hybrid working, transparency, mental health and wellness? So just from your perspective, do you feel that there is a client requirement that comes, okay, I have to look at this generation as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think with the Gen Z generation, they're looking for something or to be part of something special, not just a 9-to-5 job, let's say. They want to feel part of a community, part of a family. So I think as an employer, they should really start looking at the culture. I think the culture sells the company. So when a Gen Z is applying for a job, I think they look at, okay, salary is one thing, but I think looking at the culture and the dynamics of the office is something that they really do prioritize. So I think as a business owner, the culture of the office is something really to look forward to.
And how is that then reflected in design of how does that office looks that honors that culture?
I think when it comes to the design of the actual workplace, let's say, people are going more open planned. IDA specializes in hospitality, so there's a similar trend going on with the workplace. It's going in more of a direction of the lifestyle approach, so more boutique, more curated, right? So I think with offices, something unique, more social environments for the staff, like a break area or a break room that has a bit of a kick to it. These unique spaces are something that attracts the Gen Z population.
Okay, Professor Maria, from your side, just we're talking about design strategies.
Well, actually, to be honest, what in my opinion characterizes our Generation Z is first of all consciousness. We're facing the generation of people who are much more conscious in terms of their own rights, but also in terms of the mindset, of the mindfulness, and also of the mental health and emotional stability. And this comfort means something different from country to country. So we are a global company. We are working on a daily basis in 5 different countries. And in my opinion, it's absolutely inevitable, and it's the sine qua non for creating a good relation with the client and forming a mature and custom-made offer, as well as for the furniture, but also for the design that we're creating. And what we can say is that from country to country, as you said, the culture differs. But for sure, what doesn't change at all is that the consciousness of young people is growing. So mental health has to be taken under consideration during the design phase. And I was actually, this is my favorite thing about design. This is the psychology of design and environmental psychology. So this is actually the branch that is developing very, very strongly. And I wrote my PhD on merging those 2 branches, and it shows that we cannot design without knowing our end user. And but there is no one major solution. So the thing is that we should address the project to the client, but addressing requires a specialized team based in the country that we're serving, and this is what we're doing.
Can I just jump in only because we recently fitted out a tiny new office for the team. So from a design perspective, I think the one thing which called out the most, especially from the Gen Z perspective, was flexibility. And we can talk later about flexibility in terms of working, but especially in terms of design. So out of the entire space, there's just one closed space, which can also double down as a meeting room. It can double down as a quiet space. It can double down as a nap room. But I think the idea that, again, we believe, or I would like to have one desk of mine and that's my space. From a workspace perspective, I don't think that's the expectation anymore. I can take my laptop and sit on the couch or sit on the floor or sit on the meeting room, or I can take my meeting from where I would like to take it. I think that level of flexibility within the workspace is something which I've realized now, especially when we were fitting out the new office.
If I may add,
Yes.
speaking about consciousness and flexibility, within my office, consciousness, Gen Z is a purpose-driven generation. All generations are purpose-driven, but they are purpose-driven differently. We all share values, but their values are different. They're more into climate action, climate change, environmental awareness, etc. So what I did with my employees, I gave them the opportunity to be creatives and to be the creator. And one of the offices, we had a whole bunch of walls. I said, how should we design this space? So they started tapping on the walls and they're like, oh, it's a gypsum board. Take it all down. We want an open space. I said, okay. So it's important to listen to what they want and to cater to their wants and needs, because it creates, or not just it creates an interesting situation for mentorship, leadership, empowerment, and opportunities. So once these walls were broken down, they felt inspired, happy, and that they have an opportunity to have a voice and also not just make decisions, but voice their ideas. So after these walls were broken, I asked them, I said, okay, engage in a research project, something that we can do that would be meaningful to our work and to the community. So 2 months later, they came up with an eco-friendly football league in Riyadh. So we invited about 10 local academies and had about 1,000 teams, and it was specific to environmental awareness. Specifically, we eliminated the use of plastic water bottles in our office and on the football field. So all 1,000 participants, no plastic water bottles. They had to use reusable water bottles. So this circles back to consciousness, social awareness, social justice projects and stuff like that, which is Gen Z's interest, and also them working in their authenticity.
And I like what you said about breaking down the walls, in a way, breaking down that hierarchy that we're commonly seeing in the office. But now, obviously, I want to make this summit, obviously, region-specific and more relevant, Saudi-specific. So going back to Maria and Lean, if you can share some project case studies where this has to be challenged, where this had to actually be challenged, because we know, you have your C-suite, you have your executive, top management, leadership as well. How is this reflected in a broader picture when we talk about Gen Zs as well? If you can share some examples.
Well, I think what we're seeing now more and more in workplace design, whether it's just in this region or internationally, is it's all the same, no matter what country you go to. So the hierarchy, as much as we try to take it away, it's still going to be there. So, for example, like when we go into office design, there's always going to be a level. For example, you have your regular employees on one floor, and then the VIP, it's quite common over here, right? The VIP floor is on the floor above or on a completely different floor, and the design changes. The VIP is, obviously the cost is higher, it's more luxurious, it's more quiet. There's not much flexibility over there because everything has to be a certain way, right? But when you go down to the general employees, that's where you create the fun break rooms, the flexibility, the office pods, the fun meeting rooms where you can just like go into a pod and cross your legs and put your headphones in. So there are restrictions. Gen Zs do want to be heard, but there is a fine line, and that fine line has to stay there in order to achieve certain goals. So we have to be mindful of what we choose to accept and what we don't choose to accept.
Maria, from a side.
Well, I think that Saudi Arabia is very interesting example because nowadays trends of workspace design leads us towards the openness, equality. Whereas Saudi Arabia is all about discrecy, which I love, to be honest. But what is interesting here, we've done a lot of offices for Roshan, for Gdia, and what we see is that the new generation is trying to get internationally announced solutions of openness, yet by maintaining still the discrecy. And I think for us designers, this is quite nice challenge, and it's still doable. But I think that, as we said before, from country to country, the solutions changes, and the interpretation of words, equality, or elastic design changes in terms of the country.
Thank you so much. And Manuja, just going back to what you mentioned about, for you, flexibility being the key, and for your team, brings me to our next subject of, exactly that flexibility. We can see in LinkedIn and many job posts now, that's becoming a key selling point to Gen Zs, right? Flexible working, remote working. So how do you find that in terms of going back to how technology now then plays that integral role of having that team on board? Just from your experience, how do you see that hybrid working? Is it working out? Where is that learning happening then? And, how is that then reflected in spaces as well?
First reaction's frustrating, but I think also not just Gen Z's merit, but COVID taught us a lot about working remotely and, still working efficiently. So there were great lessons to be learned from that. But I think as someone who lives and thrives in structure, I think it's important to be able to allow that flexibility. You need to let go some of that structure. So, for example, flexibility in terms of working, of course, we also have hybrid working options, and we have work from home days. We try to put a structure around that. These are some of the days, or X day every week is going to be a work from home day. And that itself was so much structure for them that now the policy is you pick and you let us know which is going to be your work from home day, and let us know, say, 3 working days in advance. So I think the idea of, again, which is very new for someone like me who likes and lives with a structured work environment and a structured workspace, I think it's that give and take again, which comes back to, it's not a blanket policy to make sure everyone is appeased. It is 50% of my team is not 25 years old, so even we would like things a certain way, and I need to make sure that the more senior members of my team also thrive. But I think with that flexibility, truly it is coming into place where you have a framework, which could be where you work, which could be design-based, which could be hours-based, but then also there is a 50% give, which just has to fall within that framework, but you cannot control it. The more you try and control it, the team's going to be unhappy, they're going to be not motivated, but the more you empower them and keep them accountable for these decisions, that flexibility is going to give you great results.
And that level of trust as well, right? So trust that someone who's going to work remotely will do the work as well. Any of you, any points on this hybrid working and technology?
Yeah, sure. When it comes to hybrid working, right, so us at IDA, we never, even throughout COVID, I mean, we're a bit lucky being based in Bahrain, we didn't really suffer as much as or as quickly as the surrounding countries. So we actually never ever had not one single work from home day. And as a Gen Z, I'm on the side of what most Gen Zs wouldn't want. So I prefer, like Manu just said, structure, a routine. I think that increases productivity. I also think that it depends on the industry that you work in. So, for example, take design. Designers feed off each other. So when it comes to, let's say, the concept stage, you sit down, you brainstorm, you sharpen your pencils, you start like throwing ideas and bouncing off ideas with each other. So I think really the collaboration in the design industry is a huge part of a successful end product. So I really think that this hybrid or work from home model really depends on the industry that you work in.
Okay. Maria, from your side, you also mentioned about that virtual onboarding and peer-to-peer learning as well, and how is technology enabling that?
Before I will say a few words of how we function right now, I would like to say that just came to my mind that before I came here 2 years ago for the first time, I was working closely with London market. And I was working with Arcadis, Arup, and RLB, which are three biggest engineering companies on that market. They're global companies. And what I was observing is that during the COVID, they were working remotely a lot. But since almost 2 years, they keep coming back. They needed this routine. And even though the work routine didn't actually demand of personally being in the office, they turned back to the office spaces. And I'm very old-fashioned and I'm very traditional, and for me, work is first of all exchanging the energy, is the physical contact with the person. That's why actually we, if I may say so, because my friends and partners are here, we create offices dedicated to each direction, to each country, because I'm totally convinced that nothing will replace the face-to-face contact, nothing. And of course, sometimes it's helpful when you really need to focus. For example, me today, before coming here, I decided to just quickly go project by project and then have some peace of mind before I came here. But anyway, for the daily routine, I think what we are doing is we are flying a lot. And the management is actually personally involved in every project. But this means that being involved in every project in Asia, in the Middle East, in Europe, in States, it requires us being there, talking to our team, meeting the clients. And of course, we use remote meetings on Teams. This is the daily routine. We support each other during the day. Sometimes I call Cyprus 50 times a day just to ask for something. But in the end, nothing will replace the face-to-face meeting. So I think Office actually becomes a powerful tool to shape the meeting space and shape the relation within the company, but also with the client.
Okay. And just going back to, yes, Manoj, go ahead.
While we're talking about this, and I fully agree with you that I love, you can't build a culture without, I think, being there and instilling those values. But there's one example out of Nuja which blew my mind when we actually discovered it. So one of my team members is fully remote, and we're based in Dubai. She lives in Ajman, which is not very far, but she has, it's a fully remote position, but even for social events, etc. And she's just respectfully said that I'm happy being a fully remote person. And in my head, that automatically meant she is not as engaged and she's not as maybe aligned than the rest of us. At the start of this year, I brought on a friend, a coach on board, just to make sure, how do we feel as a team? Are we aligned? Do we live the same values? And she's 24 years old, and she said things like, I have never felt more aligned to a purpose. This is my team. This is my tribe. But I've never met her. I have I see her maybe 3 hours on a screen, but I have never met her. And to me, that was such a revelation, that for someone that I have never physically seen, to be that motivated and that driven and that still aligned with the rest of us was just, I stopped harassing her to come to see us after that. I'm like, you do you. I'm very happy you're happy here.
That's great. Hassan, from your side, what's the structure of your team?
So what I did after breaking down barriers and stuff, I include them in my planning, and it's important to be heard. I'll just share a quick story of Kodak. And you guys know Kodak. Anybody know Kodak? Way back in the days, it was like the thing, the camera. If you're a photographer, you would know Kodak. So they were like #1 in the film industry. And the founder or owner of, what's his name? Steven something. He is the creator for the first digital camera. So he pitched to Kodak while he was working at Kodak about the digital camera, and they shut it down immediately. Problem number one, they didn't listen to Stephen. Stephen, we could say, is a baby boomer or Gen X. Stephen was thinking about the future. He's thinking about his generation, he's thinking about millennials, he's thinking about Gen Z and Alpha, etc. So the consequence for Kodak was Sony. He pitched the digital camera to Sony, Sony bought into it, Kodak had a downfall. So when I read on this story, I said to myself, it's important for me to listen to my Gen Z employees. What are their needs? What are their wants? Because if I dismiss their voice, if I dismiss their wants and needs, I could end up in some consequences because they are, again, 99% of my work environment, my workspace, and I'm just 1%. So it's important for me to involve their wants and needs in the design of our workspace. So one of the things that they came up with, they said, and you mentioned a story of one of your employees or colleagues about wanting her own space. So one of my employees said, I want to have my own space. I said, sure, you be the creator of your own space. What about you? I want this space to look like this. We want to make it a green space. We have so many windows and too much lighting, and this lighting is expensive. So why not take advantage of the natural lighting? That's a great idea. So I'm saving costs actually by all these natural, by the windows that we have that's producing natural lighting and using eco-friendly materials and stuff, which is again driving purpose-driven work for them. So that's what I would say.
But I think that's as you said, you're 1%, right? But in today's workforce in general, we have some 5 generations working. So that also brings challenge. We have anything from baby boomers all the way to Gen Zs as well. Now, one topic that we're going to be discussing as well is mental health, right? Because that's something that I think Gen Zs as a generation are probably the loudest one, and they're voicing out their opinion on that topic, and it is important to them. So before I share some statistic, I just want to test the temperature of our audience as well. How many Gen Zs we actually have in the audience? Oh, okay, quite a few. So I will expect during our Q&A session to get some feedback as well as your inputs on the topic discussed, because I'm sure it doesn't feel good when, we are discussing your generation as well. So I'm sure you have something to share with us. But okay, let's look at some context when it comes to mental health. Gen Zs have the highest interest in topics including anxiety issues, healthy lifestyle, and relationships. Gen Z has the least concern in work performances issues. Only 6.78% of Gen Z's employees are worried about their work performance versus 12% of millennials, 16.5% of Gen Xers, and whooping 20% of boomers. So we can say that maybe as the generations are getting older, they're more worried about their work performance. When it comes to Gen Zs, we're talking about always how I feel at work. It becomes priority as well. So now going back to you, Maria, maybe we can start with you. How is that addressed in today's world of work, in today's workplace, when it comes to Gen Zs as well?
As I told you, the psychology of architecture is my favorite, so I could be talking hours, but I know we have timing. Actually, the question is what motivates us? Our needs is something that motivates us, that gives us the sign or signal to work, to do any kind of activity. And actually, designing for people or tailor-made solutions, it doesn't have to mean that we interview our end user. You know why? Because majority of our needs are subconscious. We're not aware of it. And we sometimes even have a fake picture of our needs in our head. And if we were asked consciously, what is important for you? Then we would give some kind of answer. But this answer contains the narration that we consciously create, the picture of us that we would like to have. But what I'm using, and actually I'm very proud of it, we were the first design studio to create this tool using Professor Ray's profile of motivation, and it means that the end user is being interviewed, but not by me, but by the institute. You do the, again, online test. You answer 126 questions, and those questions were prepared by scientists from 50 countries. And you answer the questions, and then you get your motivation profile, which means I like social contacts, I'm not really into it. I like cooking, which is very important in terms of nutrition. During the day, we are human beings, we have to eat. Or I'm not really into it. So these are 16 motivators that would shape our profile. Coming back to your question, if we want to respect the growing need of mental health and comfort, which nowadays functionality means comfort, I think we should consciously use the tools that are scientifically proved, because just an interview with a person would not give us the objective view of it. So I strongly advise you to use it. It's very easy to contact the institute. They will give you the tools. Of course, there are other tools to prepare the profile of the end user. And it's very funny. Actually, I've done it myself, and the view of the person that you see sometimes is surprising. Of course, a lot of it gives you the picture that you have in your mind, but also it's very important that this tool actually was used to create a top management team for huge companies. So by having let's say a profile of the person, we were able to direct this person to the right position in the company. So this is something that we should use as designers, I believe.
Thank you so much. Manuja?
If I can jump in and truly speak my mind, I don't think mental health is a Gen Z priority alone. I think it's so encouraging and beautiful to see that it's actually everyone's priority, and it should be. So they might be more vocal about it, or they might be maybe more motivated about it, but I don't think, again, as an organization, as a culture, maybe at some level it's something which is restricted to one segment of the workforce. And things like work-life balance don't resonate with me, because you spend so much of your time at work that in itself should be a value-driven, productivity-focused, purpose-driven work life and contribution in any way. And I think allowing people to be able to find that, to be able to vocalize that, and to also be able to share that not everyone is supposed to give their 100% every day. I think that is the biggest myth that we have in the workspace anyway, that I cannot have a switched off day, or I cannot have a bad day because I'm supposed to just go hustle and have my 100% all the time. So I don't think, at least for us, it's not this is what 50% of the team thinks and the rest of us don't believe in it. I think it's a very open conversation, and it's a very encouraged conversation of, again, what motivates you, how can we help support that, and sometimes you just need a day.
And I like what you said about, having a bad day. Is this always on generation now that we're promoting? Lean, from your side?
Yeah, actually 100% agree with Manuja. I think this awareness of mental health isn't just for Gen Zs, but maybe, like you did say, it's more related to Gen Zs because they tend to be the more outspoken ones. I do think when it comes to mental health, it's the responsibility of the employer to foster or to create a comfortable environment, a nurtured environment where they can grow. I think the number one thing that any individual, not just in Gen Z, will look for is when they're applying for a job or looking to be part of a culture or a certain company, is there room for growth? When I join, what can I learn? How can I grow as part of that family, as part of that culture? I do think mental health is important, and I also do think that whether you're a Gen Z or a millennial or whoever you are, at the end of the day, you're here to work. So there is, like I mentioned at the beginning, there is a fine line between what you want and what you can have. So I am here to work. My team member is here to work, and I will do my best to create this nurturing environment to the best of my abilities, but then it also needs to lie within the individual that you're here to work to achieve an outcome. So
Thank you. And I like what you said, if you could just maybe elaborate about adopting a lifestyle-oriented approach more. It doesn't matter if it's a large or small office, that when we talk about design, it's more that lifestyle approach.
Yeah, so that comes to the creating the environment, the right environment again. So like I said, in hospitality, they're going more into the lifestyle approach, which means, like Manuja said, we spend, or I spend, and I'm sure a lot of us over here spend most of our time at work, more than we do with our families. Life really does become your work. So this work-life balance is a bit, wavy, but it's important to create that environment to allow people to feel comfortable spending more hours there, putting in their best to get that productivity out of them. So.
Perfect. So I'm just mindful of time, and obviously we do have a lot of Gen Zs in the audience, so I would like to open up a floor and to start with our Q&A session. So let's maybe see those hands again. Anyone from Gen Zs who would like to add a point, ask a question, or just share an insight of how your workspace looks like.
Or tell us we're all wrong.
So let me just quickly check with the audience. Or Gen Z's bosses. Okay, here we have one question here. Yes, if you can introduce yourself and yeah.
Hi, this is Dalia Lotfi again from PDS. I have to salute you. You're a minority within Gen Z, knowing about the fine line between commitment, ownership, and having your own perspective of what a comfortable workspace should be like. My question is, I'm very curious about that. How do you manage to, and Manuja, I think she brushed over this topic. How do you maintain commitment, ownership, while nurturing the lifestyle and the mental health of Gen Z? Because personally, I'm facing just a problem because I missed that. I'm a millennial, and I missed having this relaxed and not being with performance oriented, and I have to stick to the deadlines. I have to be responsible enough, and I missed that. I missed my social life. I missed the work-life balance. But for Gen Z, how do you keep them 100% activated and in the game?
I think I can only say one thing is give them ownership. So with Gen Zs, if you set them goals and they have to achieve certain things, don't be too rigid, don't be too controlling. Give them flexibility and freedom, because when they do achieve these targets, then they will feel like they've owned that achievement, and that's the dedication that will drive them to put in the extra effort, the hours. So it's ownership, giving them the ownership.
If I may, I think there are two things that I'd like to maybe clarify and share. So I think flexibility doesn't replace productivity. It is being flexible so that you have the ownership and you have the accountability, but you also have the drive to be able to finish it. So you might not finish it in a 9 to 6 environment, but we are not relaxed in that sense. So we all work with deadlines, and we all work towards whatever the output is. What I'm flexible about is my close of business 6 p.m. or as long as you give it to me at your close of business, which is before tomorrow morning, that works for me. And that is the flexibility. But the idea is to get the job done. But also to build this accountability, I think what works really well for us is, and we're a branding team, is what is our brand, what is our values. Unless everyone in the team at some level is not aligned to those values, you are never going to have a team which is accountable and which is driven to achieve those goals with whatever framework that I have. So define yourself first and then share them and get the team's feedback on what is it that we do, what are our brand values, what motivates us, what makes us us, and then build your structure around it.
I'd like to add, it's also important to take advantage of the resources you have, the facilities. So fortunately for me, we have an athletic facility, Olympic-sized swimming pool, track, fitness center. So I give my employees the freedom and time to go and, shout if they have to in the fitness room or whatever. So they take advantage of the facilities and the resources that we have. The last thing that I would say is also creating this inspiring environment. So on our walls, we have inspiring quotes. So when they come in, they enter into the office or the room, they read it. Yes, you can. I can do it. Stuff like that. So it works.
Thank you so much. Okay, yes, we can pass the mic in the back.
Okay, it's working. Okay, so we heard from Manuja your perspective of how hard it was for you to kind of get used to how Gen Z thinks, right? And so for Lean, since you are from our generation, how hard was it for you going into a working environment that's, let's say, not flexible or doesn't really meet the kind of things that you want or you felt like you needed? So what was your experience with that?
I think for me, at least, so coming from my background or what I do on a day-to-day, it's more on the business side, right? So I'll give you an example. We have two founders, okay, in the business, and they're both of different age groups. So, or this can be like addressed to anyone, right? I think as a Gen Z, we're so set in a way of exploring how to do things in a different way. It could be wrong, it could be right, but we like to experiment, we like to try, right? So, for example, my way of doing business or my ideal way of doing business is to create like friendships first. So it's more of like a social environment that turns into potentially a business opportunity, but it's networking and making friendships. Whereas maybe the old school way would be like knocking on doors, more of like a salesperson. So I think in a business, it's really important to celebrate and listen to the Gen Zs, whether it's Gen Zs or millennials. We keep saying Gen Zs, but it could also be any age group, right? Listen to them. It doesn't mean that just because you have more experience, you're right or wrong. They might, look, Gen Zs, for example, are very tech savvy. Why not use these skills to, benefit from them? So I really think you need to always keep an open mind and listen to what they have to say, because sometimes they could be doing something better than you could have ever done. So that's what I wanted to say. Listen and take in their strengths and use them as your strengths, because their strengths are your strengths at the end of the day as a company.
And going back to Hassan's analogy about Kodak as well. So let me just quickly check. Do we have any more questions? Any more comments?
Can I just add?
Yes, one here. Okay, let's have one more.
Thank you very much. And this is first time I having a direct interaction with those people who actually founder of the companies, not professors and aged people who just talk about only bookish knowledge. So I'm a founder of one of the company. I'm from Pakistan. So I was just relating. I don't have a very big team. Right now I have 15 people in my team, and all are Gen Z. So when Manuja was talking about Maria and everyone, I was just relating that everyone is talking about the real cause, despite differences of the culture and country environment, but most of the things are same. So I think I just want to comment that I'm taking these words and learning experience and then try to address those things which actually I was facing, and some of the problems I have answers from you guys. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Can I have one comment, and especially because this is workspace, and hearing both your comment and the question. The idea of a workspace, at whether we had this panel 10 years ago and when we'll have it 10 years later, is that it is constantly evolving. So there is no right or wrong, or there isn't my way or the highway. So when in 10 years we'll be talking about, Gen Alpha, and God, they're stuck in AI. But there is always learning and there's always adapting based on that. And I think that's the beauty of whether you're a business owner or you're a professional or in life, you're just constantly learning. And the idea that, of course, you can learn from a different generation, older or younger than you, is the only way we're ever going to work well together.
Perfect. Yes.
I just would like to add one closure that comes to my mind, especially when I listen to you. I'm very happy because you speak my ideas as well and what I think. But especially, Lynn, when you told us about your way of making business, when I listen to you guys, you speak beautiful language. Your vocabulary is amazing. It means that you've been traveling a lot, that you've been tasting the life of business among other countries. And when I came here for the first time 2 years ago, and I faced the company, the way it looked, the workspace, how it was constructed in terms of the company structure, but as well for the workspace, it was very much divided. And what actually characterizes our generation is building the relations. I think for us, business is relations, and not only business development, so let's say acquiring new relations with the clients, but also relations internally in companies. So I think, first of all, the Generation Z workspace should be all about openness and relations, and this is very general, but I think it fits all that we have said today.
Thank you, Maria. And with that note, I would like to close today's panel. And thank you all so much for joining today's panel. So can we have a big round of applause for our panelists, please?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I am just mindful of time, and I would like to invite you to stay around because we're going to have a very interesting keynote presentation. May I have the screen up, please?